To the surprise of many, Florida gave it a go tonight, but made too many mistakes in the first half. Too many mistakes in the first half. Got down by 18 at the half and battled back. Got within a touchdown a number of times. Most recently, just a few minutes ago, 45-38, but the defense could not stop Najee Harris and that Alabama offensive line. All right, we have reached the conclusion of championship weekend, and now it's time to determine who's going to make the Final Four. And that college football playoff selection committee is racking its brains right now to figure out who should be that fourth team. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. This is what we do every Saturday night in season. We talk to you. We get your thoughts, your opinions, your analysis, your thoughts, your comments. And we review the day in college football and the weekend in college football, and it's been a great one. It's been entertaining. Not every game lived up to expectations. Notre Dame. But still, here we are, close to midnight Eastern time, with Alabama securing yet another SEC championship. They have by far more than anyone. And if anyone can, without looking it up, can list the team in the live chat that has the second most SEC championships, I would be a little bit surprised that not more than a few of you would get that correct. The school with the second most SEC football championships. All right. I'll take your calls at 860-325-3687. Let me get that number on the screen for you, 860-325-3687, after I remind everyone to shop Amazon. Shop Amazon. Grab the link that we provide in the description section of all the videos. Grab that link, put it somewhere where you'll remember it when you do shopping at Amazon. Grab the link, use the link. It's the same shopping experience. Doesn't add a penny to the bill, and it helps us build the channel. All right. Also, the super chat's on. And if you appreciate what we're doing and you see the vision, you see the goal, you see the objective, best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football every day, then the super chat's available. You can also contribute on a Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Let's see what you guys have here. Bama wins 52-38. They're a touchdown high on my prediction, which was 45-31. 45-31 was my Bama prediction. All right, let's see what you guys have to say, because I think we're going to be doing some resume comparisons tonight. I think that's what we're going to come down to. Resume comparisons. Snake Spence, good to see you. John, Bama at 41-31 with that UF turnover on their own 10 is about to lock the game down for good, as they did. Florida just made too many mistakes. And I'm not even talking about mistakes that were caused by Alabama. Those are plays made by the other team. Mistakes, I'm talking about self-imposed mistakes that the other team had nothing to do with the mistakes. It's one thing for your left tackle to get beat by a future NFL defensive end that causes a strip sack. That's not a mistake. That's a better team, a better player, more talented player making a play on the other team. But when you just drop the ball, that's a mistake. When you commit penalties on third down, as Florida did 4 times in the first half, Florida's defense was going to get off the field or have a chance to force Alabama to convert a 3rd and long, and they committed a stupid penalty that had nothing to do with Alabama being Alabama. It could have been Rutgers. They could have been playing Vanderbilt. It was the Florida mistake that gave Alabama the opportunity to convert a first down 4 different times on 3rd and long in the first half. And then it was also a killer when Florida was down by a touchdown in the first half. Trey Dean had the interception, was coming back, got blindsided. Great play by the Alabama wide receiver. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Billingsley who popped the ball loose. Great player by Alabama, but Florida should have hung on to the football after the interception, because you're not going to force Mac Jones into too many mistakes, and Florida had a turnover there. And then in the second half, Florida did a nice job of getting back in the game from 35-17 down at halftime to 35-31, but the defense just not good enough against that offense. Best offense in college football. We've got Cancel Enemy here. Likes the Bucks, likes the Browns. The real Bama boy. Roll Tide. Good to see everyone here. Jordan, we have a game on our hands tonight. We did. Florida, again, I think I said it a number of times that people tend to live a little bit too much in the moment. And with Florida blowing a game against a 3-win team last week and looking as bad as they did against LSU, people thought they would get annihilated tonight, and it's been a good ball game. You never got the feeling that Alabama was in serious trouble, though. Florida got behind by too many, too quickly, down by 18 at half. And they really shot themselves in the foot on defense in the first half. Lucas, definitely a great offensive game. Both defenses are not great. You might want to scale back on that concerning the Alabama defense. In college football, the way it's played in 2020, I would rate I will take Alabama's defense as a top 5 defense in the country. Easily. Good to see Michael. The real Bama. Love how Gators are hurt enough to stop play every Bama drive, and they're right back in the game and play after that. Snake Spence, can we talk about whether Notre Dame, Ohio State, or Texas A&M get in? Yes, that's pretty much where we're at, because this is the world of the here and now. Everybody wants to know what's next. So these games they're ancient history. These games that just ended like 2 hours ago, they are ancient history, and it's all about what's next. And what's next is the College Football Playoff Committee determining the top 4. And the top 3, to me, are obvious. And to me, Snake Spence, Ohio State's in. They were number 4 last week. They beat one of the top, what I believe, 10 or 12 teams in the nation, and what the playoff committee determined to be the 14th rated team in the nation, and Ohio State beat them by 2 scores. So Ohio State should not be. I'm not talking about that there's not an argument out there. I'm not saying that we cannot have the debate or the argument, or people that said Ohio State only played 6 games, not 10 or 11, that's not a valid point, because I believe that it is. It is a valid point. But I'm saying what the committee has done is they've already placed Ohio State in the top 4. So there is no way they're going to drop with a quality win by double digits. That's ridiculous. And if that happens, then you're going to see me like, and this has nothing to do with me being an Ohio State fan. This would be me responding to the committee doing an illogical, contradictory move. I don't know what I would do. I would be slamming helmets and turning tables over and going nuts in a tirade tomorrow if Ohio State's not in the playoff. And again, it has nothing to do with Ohio State. It has everything to do with the process, that if a team's number 4 in the country and they beat number 14 and there's nobody directly behind them with a better win, then how do you knock them out of the top 4? That can't happen. It's impossible. If they're thinking of this logically, it's impossible. They just showed on the screen Cincinnati, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Texas A&M as being in the hunt for the 2 spots. Cincinnati, I don't know what the score is right now. Are they comfortable? Are they good? Have they won? I know that they were up by a touchdown the last I saw. Kyle Pitts with the touchdown. So, hang on. Should be 52-45 with the extra point. I don't think you trust your defense here. I think you onside kick it. I think you just have to. And the loss in field position is not going to mean that much, because if you don't get it, you're going to be giving up the ball at roughly the 45 or 50-yard line instead of Alabama starting at its own 25. You're going to give up 25 yards of field position with the hopes of getting the football. So we still have a ball game. Lucas, Florida's defensive coordinator, is dumb. Why would you load the box and have Smith one-on-one? And that must have been with the final Alabama touchdown. But Snake Spence, you're right. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Texas A&M. This is what I would do. If I was the committee, I would take each team under consideration. And for me, it's not Ohio State, but put them in the mix. That's fine. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and Cincinnati. I would line them up, and Oklahoma. I think they should be considered as well. They're a conference champion. Put them all right there, a conference champion that played a full season. And you take all their wins and you rank their wins. So for Texas A&M, that would be Florida first, Auburn second, probably Ole Miss third, on down the line. You rank their wins 1 through whatever. And then you take their losses, which shouldn't be many. It's either 0, 1, or 2, and you rank their losses. And then you rate the game. You rate and evaluate that particular game. It's what you do. Does everybody follow me there? That's what I would do. All the teams under consideration, you take all their wins and you rank them 1, 2 for Ohio State. Win number 1, most important, most impressive win against the best opponent. If it's Northwestern, it's Northwestern. If it's Indiana, it's Indiana. Then you put Northwestern 1, Indiana 2, on down the line. You do the same thing with Texas A&M, Cincinnati, Oklahoma, Notre Dame. And you evaluate all the wins. Then you put them next to each other. You build a spreadsheet, and you can look across the line. Texas A&M's best win, Florida. Ohio State's best win, Indiana. Notre Dame's best win, Clemson. And then you evaluate the wins and how dominant the performance was against that quality of a team. But then you got to go through. You can't just, we tend to look at the best win or the 2 best wins. No, you look at all of them. Florida going for 2. Kyle Trask is going to score to make it 52-46. Wouldn't this be something? Now this changes the conversation. If Florida can pull this off, of course, then we're going to be sitting here all night to compare all the teams that Snake Spence listed, including Cincinnati and Florida and Oklahoma. Credit Florida. Michael, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. John, silly to talk about Texas A&M being in. They have no marquee win. That's not a marquee win. If that's not a marquee win, John, over Florida, then there are hardly any marquee wins in college football this year. If Florida is not a marquee win for Texas A&M, then there's only a few marquee wins in college football. If beating that Florida team It's not a marquee win again. Well, that's unfortunate. Now, if they get a first down, it's over with Florida with only one timeout. Okay, yes. And again, there's no such thing as we talked about the other night. And Devontae Smith, is he the Heisman Trophy winner? Man, did you see him? Like, he caught it like he was going to put it in his pocket. That's how skillful he is with a football. Maybe Devontae Smith won the Heisman Trophy tonight. So let's see. Florida stops it here at the 2-minute mark. Timeout. Then it's second down. They're going to run off 45 seconds. So at third down, it's going to be 1:15. Then at fourth down, they're going to punt with about 30 seconds left. Is how I see that. 152? How'd they let it get all the way down to 152? Most passing yards in SEC championship game in history. Mac Jones, Kyle Trask, tonight, Danny Werfel. I remember that game. I was at that game, 1996, and Jason Campbell in 2004. Why Auburn does not claim a national championship in 2004, it's beyond me. I would. Okay, this is going to go down to 110. And then they'll punt at about 35 to 40 seconds. Do we have an update on Cincinnati and Tulsa? Let's see. Cincinnati won 27-24. H-Man 998. Like I said, Florida could score 40-plus points and still lose. I think that was pretty conventional thinking going into this one. College Football Playoff Committee sees that Ohio State played without 20-plus players and still beat the number 14 team in the country, from Mickey B. Lucas, Dan Mullen can always get his team to the big game and never win. Okay, I'm curious about that one. What would you consider to be big games, Lucas? Because I'm considering this to be the biggest game that Dan Mullen has ever brought his team to. I don't know that Dan Mullen has a history of taking teams to big games. He coached at Mississippi State. Look at that. So they're going to punt. They're going to get about 30 to 35 seconds. So Dan Mullen, man, I have to come on here and defend Dan Mullen all the time. I don't know why. I don't get it. He did a really good job at Mississippi State, and then he comes to Florida, and he walks into a division that Georgia's dominating. And in year 3, he gets Florida over the hump and beats Georgia and goes to the championship game. Ooh, it's going to be less than 30. So it's going to be a 25, and they'll punt. That is just not a whole lot of time. They'll get a couple passes in and then start chucking to the end zone. Mickey B. Texas A&M has a 52-24 loss to Alabama and their 17-12 win over winless Vandy. They don't have much to hang their hat on other than the Florida game, and that got cheapened when Florida lost to LSU. Well, you can talk about all sorts of wins have been cheapened. Oh, boy. Get out of bounds, you knucklehead. All right, 16 seconds left. At their own 10. Oh, my word. Just throw the ball. Ball game. Well, this shows us all that Alabama's not invincible. They are really good, and I think they're the best team in the country still, but they're not invincible. Because Florida's really good, but they're not a great team by any stretch. And we saw what happened here. And Florida made so many gaffes in the first half to take themselves out of the game, and they didn't take themselves out of the game. Here come the calls. SLC Moff. We will get to your question in just a second. Here we go. Let's rev it up for the night. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
The man that gets college football, it's voice, Mark Rogers. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Dave. What's going on?
Well, you made a very good point. Alabama's not an unstoppable force, and as I mentioned to you before, if you've got a quarterback and three good guys who can catch the ball, you've got a chance to beat anybody in football nowadays, and that kind of proved it today in this game.
Yeah.
They cannot stop Florida. Kyle Pitts is an unstoppable force, by the way. I have to say that.
Yeah, he's a great player. And Florida really gave away the game in the first half. They had four different third down conversions on defense where they either gave Alabama the first down or they turned a 3rd and 10 into a 3rd and 5, and that killed them. And then, of course, they had the interception in the red zone that they turned right back over with the fumble.
Good call. Yeah, that was a killer play. I was going to point that out earlier. I think that, you know what, you obviously, Alabama has not faced an offense like this in a while, pretty much since today. I mean, at least a quarterback of this caliber and this group of skill players. So, Alabama's offense is unbelievable. Don't get me wrong. I like, their offensive line's incredible. Jones is incredible. Harris could win the Heisman. Jones could win the Heisman. And Smith could win the Heisman. So, I mean, their offense is unbelievable. But, the right offense is going to put points on the board against them, no doubt about it. So, hey, what were your thoughts? By the way, I took the points today. I took Alabama to get the points in this game. Not a good call on my part, by the way.
Well, it could have worked out for you.
What's that?
It could have worked out for you.
Yeah, I thought, at the end of the first half, I thought Alabama was going to run away with it in the second half, but I tell you what, Florida's a gutsy crew. Give them some credit. Uncle Luke can rip on them all you want, but you know what? Their team played hard today and made it a game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, give them credit.
I give them all sorts of credit.
Yeah, I mean, Mullins got them heading in the right direction. I mean, you know, you've got two powerhouse programs they have to overcome in that conference. Well, maybe three, you know, when LSU was on top of their game, too.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. But, yeah, I mean, I think Mullins is a good coach. He just needs to get some defense in there, and they'll be all right. So.
Yeah, I think he's a really good coach. I don't necessarily – I don't want to comment on the man other than being a football coach, but he doesn't he doesn't do things aside from being a football coach and dealing with the football on the field that makes me gravitate to him or defend him. He says a lot of stupid things and makes some questionable moves from time to time. Nothing that harmful or egregious, but I find myself in a position defending a guy that I don't necessarily have the drive or incentive to defend, but he takes all sorts of criticism that I don't understand.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think he's the right fit down there. He knows their culture. He was Urban's offensive coordinator when they won the national championship. I mean, he you know, from an offensive standpoint, he'll be able to get the most out of his quarterbacks. He'll get skilled players. He just needs to recruit the defensive side of the football and find a defensive coordinator. So, I mean, if he can do that, I mean, you know, they've got a shot, you know. So, yeah, I think they're heading in the right direction. So, I mean, year number 3, they get to Atlanta. They finally beat Georgia. So, give them a little bit of credit.
Yeah.
Hey, so Cincinnati won today, but barely.
Yeah.
So, here's what we're looking at. Are you of the belief that even though Notre Dame got throttled, they're sitting in on the number 4 seed? I didn't hear you earlier. What do you think?
What would I do, or what would the committee do?
How about both?
Well, the committee, I believe that they're going to keep Notre Dame in the top 4. I believe that they will. I would do exactly what I said a few minutes ago, is that I would line up every team under consideration, and we can even put Ohio State in the mix, even though I think that they should just flat out be in. Ohio State, Cincinnati, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and who am I missing? Texas A&M. And I would rank their wins. I would start by ranking their wins, and I would just go line by line and evaluate each victory and how meaningful, how weighty, how impressive is the win based on the opponent and based on the performance on the field. And that's something that I'm going to have to do when I get off here to rank my own top 25 to tell everyone who I would put in the playoff.
Well, you know what? I listened to Dabo and his complaining and Jimbo Fisher. I mean, what these coaches don't – I mean, we're living in a different world this year. I mean, there's a reason you're wearing a face diaper to coach football, guys. There's a reason that we're shutting down businesses nowadays. I mean, you're living in a COVID world. This is not a 12-game season anymore. In fact, there's a reason the games are scheduled and missed. So to say that the team, well, they only got to play 6 games, I mean, there's a reason for that. I mean, it's not like, you know, hey, we don't want to play football games. I mean, we're living in a different world. To some extent, that's got to be taken under consideration. I think you'd be foolish not to do so. Please tell me where I'm going wrong with that statement.
And we full well know that if they had been placed in that situation and their teams were 6-0 and won a conference championship, do you think Jimbo Fisher and Dabo Swinney would be saying, oh, you know what, I don't know that we played enough games, and those other teams in those other leagues that play 10 and 11 games, they need to go to the playoff, and I don't know that we deserve it because we only played 6 games. Come on.
Sure. Absolutely. If their presidents pushed their conference back to late October and said, you know what, we're going to start the ACC and we're going to start the SEC schedule at the end of October, I don't think Nick Saban or Dabo Swinney would. I think they'd be, you know, singing a different tune right now if their team was a 6-0, 7-0 ACC, SEC champion. Bottom line, and they would. They just would. That's absolutely true.
For sure.
So, yeah, I mean, give me a break. So, I mean, you know what? And pay attention to your own football team, by the way. You've got enough to do to draw up game plans, recruit, and live your life. So, please. But I got out on my soapbox there, Mark. Pardon me. But,
should Ohio State's lack of games be taken into consideration? Absolutely, they should be. That doesn't mean that they're eliminated. Right. In my opinion, they should not be eliminated. Then we should have had that discussion at some point nationally, and somebody should have decided, oh, you needed to play 6 games or 7 games or 8 games or whatever. But suddenly, in the last couple of weeks, it becomes, oh, well, they're only playing 6 games and we played 10 games. Okay, what's the magic number? Nobody's come out with that magic number and a validation of why that should be the magic number of games played. Sure.
I mean, all you can do is win the games that you're allotted to play this year. And if you win a conference championship, that's supposed to be a data point. That's supposed to be a check mark in your favor. So I would hope that would help. As you said, they have, 2 top 15 wins and a conference championship, and they've won all 6 games they've played. So, okay, I'm sorry. I mean, I can't. If I could draw up more games to play, I'm sure they'd sign up and do it tomorrow. But that's not the world that we're living in nowadays. And for people to not, see that, I still don't get it. I don't understand it.
And also, Dave, we're in this process and in this world of eyeball tests seemingly being more important than metrics. Does anyone truly believe that knows anything about football that if Ohio State would have played the other 4 or 5 games, if they would have played Maryland and, Michigan and all the other teams that they missed, would they really have lost those games? Would anyone in any way, shape, or form believe that they would have lost any of those games?
No, and they know that. But it's, I think these coaches are, well, we went through the grind. We had to play all those games, but, I don't know. I just don't. I think they're not looking deeper enough and not understanding the world that we're living in and taking that into consideration. Or maybe they just don't want to. I don't know.
Well, in the case of Texas A&M, they've played 9 games and Ohio State's played 6. You could also make an argument at some level that, okay, Texas A&M played 3 games less than they would have in any other season. They played 4 games less than they would have played under normal circumstances plus a conference championship game. So maybe they've played a right amount of games to be in that nice groove of playing on a fairly regular basis but not getting worn down, that they actually have an advantage of having more reps than Ohio State does.
Well, as I told you, Mark, I want Ohio State to play more games. I actually think if they'd have played earlier games this year, that would have allowed them to play a lot of their younger players, to work out some of the kinks they had on both sides of the ball, and just, naturally get better as a football team. I mean, obviously, the more games you play, the more you can incorporate more talent, build depth, and do some good things that way. I mean, that's what those teams do over the course of a long season, or at least what most teams hope to do over the course of a long season. So, yeah, I mean, there's no coach saying, I don't want to play 12 games, so I can't help but build up my team and improve as a team over the course of the year. That would be, that'd be naive for any coach to not think that.
Yeah, if we truly believe that these teams and these players are beat down to a frazzle after playing 12 games in the regular season, then they shouldn't be playing 12 games in any season then. We should restructure this.
Right. Well, that's what I said, Mark. I mean, I do think that if they expanded, are you of the thought that if they do expand to 8 down the road, they would have to maybe think about moving the regular season back to 11? Or do you think that they would just keep it at 12?
Well, let me do the math here. So in playing a 14 playoff, we're playing 3 games. So in playing an 18 playoff, I think we would be playing 7 games. I think that's the number. There'd be 4
Okay.
games in the first round, then there'd be 2, then there'd be 1. Okay, 7 games versus playing 3. So there's only 4 more college football games being played.
Okay.
So there's only like 3 or 4 teams in the country that will play 1 additional game.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Right.
As opposed to basically you're taking 130 teams and eliminating 130 games to the expense of playing 4 additional games.
Do you think that they would move? I mean, because the scheduling is the one thing. You know, they've run this playoff or run this championship game almost, you know, sometimes so close to mid-January. Are you up to thinking that they would start that earlier? I wonder how they would place that too. You know, the quarterfinal matchups versus extending out the college football season to the end of January. Or maybe they'd just be okay with the end of January. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, we seem to be okay with 3 to 4 to 5 games being played in a week 0, the last weekend of August before Labor Day. Why can't everybody start that week?
Okay, so you're talking bring up the regular season, you know, at an earlier time then basically, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying that I've thought it through. I'm just throwing it out as a suggestion to be tabled. You know, I would certainly not want to do that if there are valid reasons not to, but we have plenty. You know, once, and you'll remember this well, Dave, when there was an 11-game schedule, and then we started to have more and more frequent add-on games at the beginning of the season, starting with the Kickoff Classic and the Pigskin Classic and all these games played in East Rutherford and LA and all over the place. Well, those games were always played the 26th, the 28th, the 30th of August, played a week before everybody else.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the one thing about it would be, I just wonder how it would be structured. That's basically where I was going with my overall thought process on it. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, I actually don't think that college football would have, I mean, if they've already extended out to mid-January or close to mid-January, I don't think they'd have a problem with extending it till the end of January. So, you know, I mean, they're already there. So, I mean, I guess their thought process has always been, I guess, competing with the NFL was kind of a little bit of reasoning behind the scheduling, too. Isn't that also part of the thought process, too? They don't want to run up against the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, there's really no chance of that happening. Right now, the championship games played on, I think it's the 12th this year. So extending that a week takes us to the 19th, and we're not close to the Super Bowl. And again, I'll bring up another
games, maybe.
I'll bring up another example from the past. That Ohio State team in 2002 that won the national championship, they played 13 games in a row with no bye weeks.
Right. You're right.
And I'm not saying we should do that, but that's what was done. And it wasn't by just some random team out there that went 7-6 in 13 weeks. They were able to win in arguably the best conference in America, 13 consecutive games without a bye week.
Right. Sure. Yeah, I mean, I get your point. I mean, I think it can be done. I think that the contract is up from what I've heard somewhere around like 2024 when I check, Mark. So I think that might be the one date where they might look at this again and might look at it, extending it. My whole thing is I just wonder if, and again, I think you get the 5 major conferences in, you're able to cater to the Power 5, you're able to get 2 major non-conference teams if you expand it to 8. But the only thing about it would be, I just wonder if it gives us really good competition and more really good football games and more competitive games. Because remember, as we've mentioned before, we've only had 3 competitive semifinal football games. Only 3. So, I mean, maybe it gives us some. I don't know. I would hope so. I just wanted to give us good football. That's all I'm saying, Mark. I just want to give it, to give us good football. Maybe it would. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I want it to be fair and equitable. I of course, want to see good football games, but I don't want that to get in the way of. I don't want that to get in the way of rewarding teams for having a deserving and having an objective system where teams and coaches know what they need to do to reach a playoff, and rewarding the teams. I don't think we play enough games to evaluate teams without an objective system. You or I could sit here at the end of any college football season. Let's say just everybody played 12 games and the schedule would be whatever it was. And just based on watching a lot of college football, if somebody said, hey, Dave, select the 4 best teams and they're going to go play in a playoff, you would do a pretty capable job of that.
Sure.
So,
well, go ahead.
I don't know what I was leading to there. It was off of something that you had said, but.
Well, let me throw out this question, Mark. In your opinion, and I've never heard you phrase it this way, do you want the 4 best or do you want the 4 most deserving? Because that's always been the question, right? Should we take the 4 best or should we take the 4 most deserving teams? And a lot of times, those two things don't align. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's better and easier and more quantifiable to gauge the 4 most deserving than it is the 4 best.
Right.
Who are the 4 best teams in the country? We could take a poll. We've got 201 people online right now. And if I had the technology to do it, I'd have everybody punch in who are the 4 best teams in the country. And we would most likely have close to 100% on Alabama and Clemson. And then probably Ohio State would garnish the next number of votes, whatever it is, 60%, 80%, something. And then you'd have this smattering of Texas A&M, maybe Florida, Notre Dame, maybe some Oklahoma. And then there would be a bunch of wild cards in there, I'm sure, from some different fan bases.
Can I throw out a team, Mark, right now?
Sure.
But I think now that they got quarterback play,
I know who it's going to be.
I think Georgia right now it would be the 4th best team. I know if they played Notre Dame on a neutral field, they'd beat them.
I would certainly pick them to win.
So I think that Georgia, by the way, if you take a look at the 24/7 sports composite, and I know recruiting rankings aren't everything because Texas has the 5th most talented roster, but Georgia actually has the most talented roster according to recruiting rankings.
Yep.
And now they've got really good quarterback play. So you put some good quarterback play on that team, as I said the entire year, they can play with anybody. I don't know. I mean, that's all I'm saying. They can play with anybody. So I think that you could make a case they're better than Notre Dame. So,
Dave, I appreciate the call. Got a lot of people calling in, but thank you so much for the call.
All right, I look forward to the show tomorrow. Take care.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to the call will start at the beep.
All right, before I take this call, if we went by, in hindsight, 2020, not the year 2020, but hindsight being 2020, and looked at previous college football playoff seasons and just said, who were the 4 best teams? Well, sitting here 52 weeks ago, sitting in the same place, I don't remember if I had this decor up, but you can go back to the live streams, and I said, Oklahoma just earned a playoff spot by winning the Big 12 with only 1 loss, as opposed to Oregon winning with 2 losses in the Pac-12, but they are not the 4th best team in the country. Alabama is the 4th best team in the country, and they would make it a better playoff. So the 4 best teams in the country are LSU, Clemson, Ohio State, and Alabama. But Oklahoma earned it with a conference championship and only 1 loss, while Alabama has 2 losses. So if we went year to year to year to year, which I'll do after this phone call, we can, in hindsight, say these are the teams that made it. These are some of the teams that may have deserved and had a gripe and an argument. But then in the aftermath, we can kind of look at it and say these were really the 4 best teams. All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. Ben.
Hey, Ben. I am sorry for your Florida Gators, but they put up quite a fight.
Yep. Not enough, but dang. Life is crazy this year, isn't it? I mean, the number one team in the nation almost loses to a two-loss Florida team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was crazy, and it was a good season overall. Obviously, this is a disappointing loss, and you never really want to see that, and it's sad, to see. But in the end, I mean, Gage put up a good fight, and I'm happy to see him play like that. But I was just wondering your thoughts now. On what happens with Notre Dame and Texas A&M, because Texas A&M won, of course, this today and actually yesterday now. And this is just it's kind of been shaken up, because I wouldn't say that they got blown out as much as I would say that they lost by an amount that could possibly knock them out of the playoff. That could knock them out of the playoffs, in my opinion. So, if you were the one guy, it's your top four right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, other people think, well, what is your top four going into tomorrow?
Okay. Ben, let me ask you this. Have you seen my top 25 rankings every week? Do you know?
No.
So I release top 25 every Sunday morning. And I actually term it the top 25 that actually makes sense, because I don't agree many times with the AP poll and the coaches poll, because they don't make sense. So I started my own rankings. So I cannot completely, if you gave me complete ownership of college football and said, Mark, you are in charge, you are the only one in charge of the college football playoff rankings and those final four teams, I couldn't just spit them out right now. I would do exactly what I said when I opened the show up tonight. I would take all the teams under consideration. And to me, that's Ohio State, Cincinnati, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. And I would rank their wins from 1 to whatever. Oklahoma's 8 wins, Ohio State 6 wins, Notre Dame's 10 wins. And I would evaluate them based on the opponent and the performance, the score, and not just the score, knowing how well or not well that team played against that opponent. And I would measure those across a spreadsheet, and I would come up with a metric to evaluate each one of those wins. And then I would do the same thing with the losses, which of course are either 0, 1, or 2, depending on the team, and counterweight that against the wins to determine who's going to make the playoffs. I will say that, because I know people want this answer out of me tonight, but I'm not willing to commit to it. But I will say, because people are going to ask me, as you just did, and people are in the live chat, who should be in the playoffs, I'm going to say, before I go through that process, because I'm going to do that tonight, I'm basically going to do that after I get off of this live stream, because I'm going to release my top 25. So those top 4 means that's who I would have selected for the playoff. I believe that based on resume, that should be most likely Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Ohio State 3, and Notre Dame 4.
All right, and then I got like maybe 1 or 2 more things.
Sure.
So, of course, my voice is a bit hoarse right now, of course. I've been yelling a lot.
Yeah.
So, but I just want to say one thing about Ohio State. And I know this is going to click off a lot of people in the chat, because I see a lot of Ohio State fans, I think. But I would like to know one thing.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 teams that Ohio State has played that I guess, in my criteria of an eye test, a good team, that's maybe not as complete, because no team is really complete this year. Mm-hmm. I don't see this eye test that they passed. I see the Michigan State game. They were missing players, right?
Yep.
They were missing players. So, and every team this year has been missing players at some time. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
and they play good all year. They're a good team, and I know my criteria doesn't matter much, but I mean, I don't know.
So Ben, I'm going to answer your question, because if fill in the blank team in the Big Ten, Indiana, if they did exactly what Ohio State has done this year, would we be ranking Indiana as high as Ohio State? The answer is no. Is that fair? No,
Exactly.
It's not fair. But there's a certain cachet that Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson in particular, those three teams have coming into this season that other teams don't have. So there's an assumption. So let's say Indiana, again, we'll use them as an example. They did exactly what Ohio State did this year. Well, there would be a process that it would be like, okay, well, they look good for 6 games and they won them all and they beat a couple good teams, but how good are they really? Just like when BYU was undefeated, people were saying, a number of people, they should be given a shot. What are we going to do with them? Should they be in the playoff? And I was like, I give them all the credit in the world for being undefeated, but this BYU football program goes 7-6 or 8-5 every year, like it's clockwork. That's who they are. They go 7-6, 8-5 about every year. So what makes us believe that BYU is suddenly an undefeated football team if they were playing a decent schedule? They wouldn't be. The same thing holds true for Ohio State. The committee and people in general are relying on the team that they saw last year that was one of the 3 best teams in the country, and they're relying on Ohio State delivering as much talent as any team in the country year after year after year. They have more NFL draft picks than any team in college football over the last 15 years, and that shouldn't have anything to do with what's going on right now, but we can trust the brand and the talent on the roster. So if Alabama was in that situation, or Clemson, the same thing would happen. They would be given that benefit of the doubt that, well, it's I posted a tweet the other day where I listed records of the top 10 programs in the country since the college football playoff era started. And Alabama 1, Ohio State 2, and Clemson 3 by far had the best records, and it's not even close. They're all like in that 80-8 range. So there's a trust that Ohio State has a top. Ohio State has either been in the playoff or been the first team left out of the playoff every year that we've had a playoff. So there's a trust that that talent, and we know that the talent is as good, if not better right now than it's ever been. There's a trust that that team's going to show up. And that's not necessarily fair, but I'm just telling you that's what people are banking on.
I mean, now that I think about it, obviously undefeated's good. I think it's just my brain being kind of mad about that win, because obviously, they're a good team. And, I mean, I can't make excuses because they would have beat us and we lost. But I don't know. This whole entire day has been just weird. We've had, Clemson, I wouldn't say blow out Notre Dame.
Oh, I'd say they blew them out.
Considerable margin. Yeah, they beat them by 24 points. So,
hey,
I mean, that was a good win.
Hey, Ben, I'm going to take this next call. I've got a lot of calls coming in. I'm going to take this next call, and you call me back tomorrow, okay?
All right. Bye.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to... The call will start at the beep.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Oh, Samuel.
Who is this?
Sam.
Sam?
Yeah, Sam.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great. So I just wanted to make a quick question. I know you give awesome insight on the game. So I was watching the Ohio State game today, and I never liked the bash on quarterbacks, but if Ramsey just played a little tad bit better, I'm pretty sure they would have won that game by a lot with the way he was going in terms of their defense. So do you think the committee actually takes this into account when they're looking at the games?
Sure. They should. If we had an objective playoff system, they shouldn't. But they are charged with evaluating these teams. So they're evaluating the quality of the opponents. So they're evaluating how good Northwestern is, which in my estimation, they've got one of the 10 best defenses in the country, and they've got a below average offense. It's not horrible, but it's a below average offense. And Peyton Ramsey is a top 25 to 30 quarterback in the country, something in that range. So he's not great. He's better than marginal. I don't know that I would call him good. He's serviceable.
Okay. And the last thing that I wanted to ask you was about Ohio State's schedule, or lack thereof, basically almost cut in half. You know, when Jimbo Fisher said about the number of games in the SEC schedule, do you think that holds any truth to it?
Well, I think absolutely that we should be looking at and giving more favor to teams that have played more games than teams that have played less games. But it was never stated by anyone, including the committee, that there was some kind of dividing line. It was never stated, well, you got to play at least 8 games. So if Jimbo Fisher is all full of himself for his team playing 9 games and another team played 6 games, what's the magic number? It's only 3 games. And I know that could be viewed as significant, but just because a team played 9 games, I don't see Oklahoma or Clemson saying, you know what, we played 10 and 11 games. You only played 9 games. So we're going to leave you out.
True, good point. One more question. Sorry about that. So when I was watching the game today, I thought that Ohio State secondary, particularly Sean Wade, isn't as amazing as he was like last year. Do you think when they say that they look at the eye test to everything all together, or do they look at the final score, or do they really detail these games all together?
Well, I think the committee is made up of various people, 13 people, that all have different approaches. And some of them rely more on just watching football and evaluating football teams and just how good the teams are, just based on their eyeball test and determining, do I think that Ohio State would beat Texas A&M, or Texas A&M would beat Ohio State, just based on watching them play every week. And they better, those 13 people better, for having that much authority, be watching all those teams play every game. So I'm just going to emphasize that. If I ever found out that they weren't watching every game involving a contending team, then they should be kicked off the panel. Because they should be watching every play of every game involving, at this point, Texas A&M, Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame, Alabama, all the teams that are in it. But then you've got, Sam, other people that are more on the metric side. Like, give me the stats, and if I see that Ohio State averages, let's say, 5.8 yards per play, and Texas A&M only averages 4.9 yards per play, but Ohio State's defense gives up, 5.2 yards per play, and Texas A&M, where they measure the teams more based on the metrics. Now, I think the truth is somewhere in between. Both approaches are valuable and valid to a certain extent, but not taken to the nth degree.
Okay. I do see that, because I was talking with a buddy of mine, and I was telling them basically, I don't know if you noticed, towards the second half of the game, the Ohio State Northwestern game, the Northwestern D-line looked complete gas. So I know Trey Sermon had an amazing day, but if Northwestern's offense was able to score a bit more points, you don't know how that game turns out. So that's why I always wanted to figure out what the committee meant by eye test, because I never felt they really went in depth by what they meant. But that's a much better answer.
Well, I'm glad I can answer questions for the committee.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Sam. Have a good night, man.
Good night.
It's nice to know that I'm available to be explaining the committee's job for them. All right. You see the number on the bottom of the screen. This should be a great night of talking college football. We got about 270 folks on the line. So it's great to have all of you. Maybe some people that don't normally join us. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hunter from Alabama.
Hey, Hunter. How are you?
Good. I'm on first shooter right now.
Okay.
I think Pete Golding tonight in the game played a little bit too conservatively. What do you think?
Who played too conservative?
Pete Golding, the defensive coordinator.
Oh, okay. You wanted to see more blitzing and more man-to-man coverage?
I wanted to see more blitzing. When Emory Jones got into the game twice, he got first down. And we knew he's a dual threat quarterback. So he should have known that was going to be a run play. And he just did not send the blitz on that play. Instead, he dropped the corners and safeties back. Well,
in watching Emory Jones play, there's no question that he doesn't have the entire playbook open to him like Kyle Trask does. But they do have – he's not the type quarterback that you see with other offenses where they're just completely afraid to let him throw the ball. You know, they give him about 5 to 6 throws that they'll allow him. Most of them are down the seam, not deep down the seam, but they're mostly slants and middle of the field throws, like quick, bam, and they allow him to make those throws. So he's a decent passer, if that's what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know he's a decent passer. I mean, Alabama, I follow Alabama recruiting very closely, and he was a guy who Alabama was really recruiting during his recruitment. So I understand what he's capable of, and I respect the game. But at the same time, you know, I got to give credit to Florida. They had a really good game plan coming in to kind of tackle our defense. And, you know, Kyle Pitts, you know, that tight end for Florida is a phenomenal player. But at times in this game, I was a little frustrated. I understand that Christian Harris, our linebacker, was hurt from a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
And that kind of put a dent in things a little bit. But I think at times we could have been a little bit more aggressive on defense.
Well, especially to your point, when you're facing a Florida offense that, for as great as it is obviously, I don't know that we've ever seen an offense in college football that was this prolific being one-dimensional. Unless you're going to go back to like the Houston days of Andre Ware and David Klingler, but they didn't play good teams. But to play in the SEC and be that one-dimensional, where they basically gave up on the run, and they have been giving up on the run generally the entire season. I know Dan Mullen made the comment during the offseason that he said, I would like to be balanced and be 50-50, which they were 2 years ago, almost identical yards per game throwing and running, that he would prefer that. But if that's not them, then that's not them, and he's not going to force it. So they pretty much gave up on the run weeks ago. And to be that one-dimensional and still be that prolific and productive is pretty phenomenal.
And we gave up some explosive plays we probably shouldn't have tonight on defense. I mean, there were some plays there about last touchdown with Pitt that shouldn't have been given up there. But give all credit to Mac Jones and Devontae Smith and Najee Harris for putting on the show that they did tonight.
Well, yeah, those guys are phenomenal. I just don't know who's going to deal with that offense. I guess Clemson and Ohio State have the best shot of anyone. At least they have the athletes on that side of the ball to give it a go. But wow,
I think Clemson has more of a shot at stopping us than Ohio State does.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, Ohio State had a much better defense. I shouldn't say much better, a decidedly better defense last year than they do this year. They lost the best cornerback in the country. They lost the best pass rusher in the country. So, yeah, their defense is good. It's capable. It's talented. But they lost two of the top 3 picks in the NFL draft.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. Do you think that A&M deserves a spot in the playoffs?
Oh, wow. I will make the comment that I've made a number of times in that I'm going to release my rankings at some point between late tonight and early in the morning. And I'm going to take this very seriously and just play it out like I would the committee. And I don't know if you're familiar, I release my top 25 rankings every Sunday. But this being the final one and the 4 spot being as controversial as it is, I'm going to lay out everybody's resume, and I'm going to rank their wins from top to bottom. And for Texas A&M, it of course starts with Florida number 1 and Auburn 2, and then it kind of falls off a cliff after that. I guess Ole Miss is a decent win. But I'm going to rank those wins, and I'm going to judge the teams based on who they beat and how impressive they looked in beating those teams, and just have a spreadsheet that just lines them all up. And based on that, I think that over the course of a season, the entire season, that Notre Dame has the most impressive resume of all the teams under consideration.
Yeah, well, let me just give you my take. And this might just be the SEC guy coming out of me here. So we take that for what it is. I think A&M deserves to be in the discussion because they did beat Florida. And I think tonight, them playing as well as they get against us, even though they lost to LSU, I think they deserve to be in the conversation more than some people are giving them credit for. I'm a big Jimbo Fisher fan, and I think he's one of the best coaches in the country. So, I kind of take that into consideration as well when I'm, thinking about teams. Notre Dame played a good game against Clemson the first time they played them. And today I watched a little bit of that game, and I thought that they did a decent job in the first half. Second half, they kind of let everything slip. So, maybe it's just the SEC guy coming out of me, but I think that A&M deserves a little bit more credit than what some people are giving them.
Well, I'm giving them credit. I'm taking their resume very seriously. Although for playing what was originally a 10-game SEC schedule, they missed one game. Let's see, that would have been against they never made up the game against Ole Miss, did they? That was the game they missed. Yeah, that's the game I wanted to see. I wanted to see Texas A&M's defense play Ole Miss, and unfortunately they didn't. And Ole Miss put up another 48 points tonight. I wanted to see that game. Anyway, that's the one game that they missed out of their 10-game season. But for playing a 9-game SEC season, you would have expected that Texas A&M's schedule would be tougher than it is. Like you, I believe that the SEC is the best conference in the country and has been for a long time. And I don't think it's debatable. I don't think it's a joke. I don't think the number 2 leagues so far behind, they're not a challenge, but I don't think it's debatable. But if you look at Texas A&M's 9 games in the SEC, and they won 8 of them, if you take their 8 wins, they decline in impressiveness very quickly. You've got Florida, and then it's Auburn, and then it's who? It's a bunch of South Carolina, Vanderbilt.
Then it's a close game against Alabama, So yeah, I give them a little bit more credit than probably maybe I should. But I want to push you one more thing before I let you go, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I think this year in recruiting, I think it's amazing the class that Alabama put together in this signing class, with so many of those kids not even being able to visit Alabama, and they really relied on the Bama factor this year in recruiting. I mean, you had guys like JoJo Earl out of Texas and canoe coach, I think that was his name, who ended up flipping from LSU. Those two kids flipped from LSU to Alabama. Neither one of those kids is, Canoe had been on campus back on junior day, early in this, last year, and then he was on campus, in February. But Joker Earl had never been on campus, and there were some other players within the class that never was stepped foot on Alabama's campus, and we really relied on that Nick Saban and that Bama factor to come in to find what I think is arguably probably one of the best classes Nick Saban's ever found, when you look at it from top to bottom. So, as an Alabama fan, I'm excited to see what these kids come in and provide for us, next year. I think one of the kids that I'm most excited about is a guy that not a lot of people are talking about, but his name is MarkRogersTV. Him and I think Dallas Turner are probably the two best players in this class that we signed. And to get those guys on campus, and I think MarkRogersTV is the early enrollee, and having him on campus early is really going to benefit come next season.
Did we lose you?
Yeah, you there? Sorry.
Oh, yes. So was there a question in there?
I'm sorry, I guess I broke up a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we didn't hear you there for a minute. So anything else for us?
No. Appreciate you taking my call, and have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good one. I had some calls coming in. Please call back. The number's on the bottom of the screen, 860-325-3687. So the argument wages in the chat between Ohio State, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, Cincinnati, Oklahoma. And of course, if you include Ohio State, some would assume that they're just the number 3 team, and others put them in the mix in the argument. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's Bash.
Hey, Bash. What's up?
Hey, Mark. Answer this for me.
Sure.
Ohio State
Mm-hmm.
plays a top 20 or top 15 team. Beaten by 12 with 21 players missing, including their best wide receiver.
Yep.
And yet gets criticized for it. Do you think there's any other team in the playoff conversation who would have a win by 1 point in that situation that would get criticized for it?
Well, there are certain teams and conferences that people hate. So there's a backlash against the SEC from certain areas of the country that just generally hate the SEC, and Alabama in particular. I think Ohio State's arguably the most hated team in the country for various reasons. Some people hate Notre Dame. I think, and I had several people on here, and for some reason we fell into this conversation, and this was recently, and we pretty much all agreed that Ohio State, Alabama, and Notre Dame are the 3 most hated teams in the country. So people just hate Ohio State. Like they hate Alabama, and certain people hate Notre Dame. Certain people hate all sorts of different teams, but those seem to be the 3 that people gravitate to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. But the fact, like, I'm just looking all over social media, looking, in comments and all over the place ever since Ohio State's game. Holy crap. What more are they supposed to do? Like, Justin Fields played a bad game. What do you think Ohio State's supposed to do? Gee, I don't know, have a single game in Ohio State history, a single game record broken in rushing? Or how about a defense who, outside of the first drive of the game, didn't allow a touchdown and had 3 turnovers, which, by the way, was a concern, right?
Yep.
And that was very much concerning. They dominated after the first drive, Mark. And let me just say this for you Ohio State fans out there, and I know there's a lot of them in your chat, and I know you love following the Buckeyes too. As if you had to align with the fan base, you would align with Ohio State. Having Josh Proctor back there instead of Marcus Hooker, 110% better.
Yeah.
I just take the experience of Josh Proctor. He didn't get beat at all. And Northwestern certainly tried. It's not like Northwestern was just thinking and dunking. They kind of had to. Josh Proctor was not getting beat like Marcus Hooker had been. I love – and by the way, this isn't shade to Marcus Hooker. Honestly, both of them. So what – for those of you that don't follow Ohio State that closely, Josh Proctor, he would be that star back, that kind of fifth or fourth nickel, fourth cornerback. Basically, he would play closer to the line of scrimmage as a safety. And Ohio State drops in the cover 3 scheme with the outside corners, Sevin Banks and Sean Wade, dropping into their thirds. And in the middle of the field is Marcus Hooker, who's not supposed to be beat. Marcus Hooker was a starter who was out because of COVID. They moved Josh Proctor there and had a handful of different safeties playing Proctor's position, including they put Williamson there a couple of times. They also put Ransom there mostly. My gosh, the difference between Proctor and Hooker is like night and day. I got to say, I love Marcus Hooker, but maybe that's not the spot for him. Maybe they got to try him somewhere else.
Well, the other part of this bash, in terms of the perception that people have out there, is that people are enamored with offense. So if your offense is struggling, then they jump on you. So Ohio State won this game 22-10. If they would have won this game 52-40, a lot of average fans would have been more impressed with that, not taking into account the defensive issues, but being impressed by the offense. The other part in this is that Northwestern, as you well know, does not get anywhere close to the credit that they've earned, whether it be this year or as a program. People look at Northwestern and they just think, oh, they're gritty and they're technically sound and they're really not that talented. They're not that good. And they don't realize that Northwestern legitimately has one of the 10 best defenses in the country.
Mark, but here's the problem is I saw how people reacted to the Indiana game. That offense is very good, but that defense is no good, and Joseph Fields is reckless with the ball, which he was reckless in that game. But they were just trashing the defense. You know, it was just Ohio State can't play defense. Ohio State gets burnt a lot. There's this Ty Vogel going for over 200 against Ohio State. Why is Michael Penix going for over 100-plus yards? Not bringing up the fact that Ohio State was up 35-7 in the game. Not bringing up the fact that Ohio State had Indiana at negative rush yards, which might have been a problem that they allowed so many pass yards, but I digress. Not bringing up the fact that Justin Fields had 300 total yards and 3 touchdowns, and they also ran the ball very well. I had almost 500 yards total offense. They might have even had 500 yards. So this argument that you're making about the hated programs, it's much more reasonable than this whole entire we're more enamored with offense argument, because I don't believe that to be true at all, based on what I've seen. You know, people are also reacting to Alabama's game tonight, saying, where was your defense? Same way they reacted to Ole Miss. And, you know, should there be criticism to that defense? Yes, to the point where you should be like, hey, they're not the top team in the country right now? No. Some people are like, yeah, Alabama's a fraud. The only place I would put Alabama a fraud in is calling this Nick Saban's best team ever. I don't think they've had the competition since the Georgia win to really say this is Nick Saban's best team ever. We'll see in the playoff, but quit proclaiming that prematurely. We did that in 2018. Look what happened. 44-16. Clemson ran Alabama out of Santa Clara. You know, so I think the top 4 should be pretty obvious. And
hey, Bash, I appreciate the phone call. I've got a ton of people calling right now, so thanks so much for calling me, man.
Yes.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to
All right.
the call will
Mark
start
Rogers
at the
TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Mark, what's up, man?
Hey, DeAndre. What's going on, man?
Man, just celebrating the game. We Clemson pulled it off. We got our starters back and we put it on Notre Dame.
Yeah, it was impressive.
Just like it was 2018 again. So, you ready for Clemson, Ohio State Part 5?
Sure. I would love to see it. Can't
I
wait.
think it's going to happen.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I would think that they're going to be 2 and 3. I would think.
Yeah. And then I don't think anybody wants to see Clemson, Notre Dame with third time in a row. So that's where it's going to be. What's going on with Ohio State's defensive line? It looks like they have a lot of issues with the run this year. And it's a very small sample size, but what do they have issues with?
The Ohio State defense. The Ohio State defense with a run.
Yeah, didn't Northwest have a bunch of big runs though?
Well, I think everybody gives up some rushing yardage to a decent team. They only gave up like 3 yards per carry today. I don't know what the rushing yardage total was, but it wasn't much over 100 yards, if that.
Yeah, I listened to the game on the radio. I wasn't about to watch that one. I just thought they struggled against the run today. But I agree with your caller earlier. People need to start giving Justin Fields a hard time. Yeah, one bad game against a pretty good defense. So, I mean, I can't wait to see him and Clemson go up against him. Yeah, every time wide receiver. So, I mean, I just can't wait for Clemson and Ohio State to do it again, and whoever else gets in, along with Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. It's getting kind of boring. You're doing it over and over.
Well, I'm not going to make any excuses for Justin Fields, but he was under heavy pressure most of the game. And, yeah, he didn't have his best receiver.
Yeah, I think it was 44% with 2 interceptions. He'll bounce back. I mean, he got to. I mean, sometimes they play if the matchup is versus. But if the matchup is against Alabama, he definitely has to shake. But I saw what Dabo says that he thinks Trevor Lawrence should win the Heisman. But I'll be honest with you, the receiver out of Alabama, he should win the Heisman. And he's by far the best player I've seen.
Yeah, you know what? I've come around to that just in the last couple of days because the way I've set it up, and I'm not a big Heisman guy that talks about the Heisman unless I'm asked about it, but I've been thinking that the better player between Trask and Jones in this championship game would win the Heisman, and that would be my thought. But really taking into account that it goes to the best player, and yeah, Devontae Smith's the best player in the country.
Yeah. I waited for to talk to you, the guy after the game, the Notre Dame game, but I can't remember his name, the guy from Notre Dame. Because I think you had told me that the defensive coordinator from Notre Dame has not had 30 points put up on him, but once before the last time Clemson and Notre Dame played. And I said, man, I just didn't think that was going to be that close. I know I was teasing him a little bit on Twitter, but I was waiting to talk to him. But, I mean, it was a hell of a game. I think you said that Notre Dame was missing their center. That's why they lost. I don't think you said about somebody off the stream that that's why Notre Dame lost because of the center that it was missing. But I thought he was a big part of it. And I can't wait to see what they do against Alabama. But, Clemson could contain Ian Book, because Ian Book was looking like Brett Favre out there with some of the passes he was doing against Clemson and Carolina, that's getting away with everything, man. I think Ian Book is a pretty good quarterback.
Well, I think Clemson did a much better job of keeping him in the pocket. and making sure that the rush ends didn't over pursue and leave him gaps in contain that he could just break for big gains.
Right. Well, I've got some other people are trying to call, Mark. You have a good night, man.
I appreciate it, DeAndre. Have a good one, man. So our guy DeAndre getting the job done. Big Clemson fan, Pittsburgh Steelers as well. Okay, got another call coming in. Here we go. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Yeah, who's on the line?
My name is Reagan.
Hey, Reagan.
Hi. So yeah, I am a Florida fan. Just coming off a really tough loss.
Yeah, it was a tough one. You fought back in the second half and had a shot.
Yeah, it was one of those ones where you expected it to happen, but at the same time, when it came down to the end, just didn't expect it to end like that.
So what you got for me?
Just tough loss. Well, what are your thoughts on Florida making a New Year's Six Bowl?
Well, I'd kind of have to add up all the slots available. I think I did that last night with a caller, and I had them going to one of the games because you got to figure if you take the 4 teams out of the playoff, and then you also have the Orange, Fiesta, Peach, Cotton. So there's 4 games. That's 8 slots. And I think the other teams that are going to make it are going to be Oklahoma, Indiana, Florida, Cincinnati, Oregon, Georgia, and maybe North Carolina, maybe Iowa State. So I think they'll make a New Year's Six Bowl. Maybe Coastal Carolina will get in there.
Yeah, there's a good possibility they could.
Maybe we'll see them play North Carolina in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, that would be an interesting game. I saw. Do you think? Is there like a prediction on the game you think they'll make it in, or no?
I haven't made any bowl projections, so I'm just up here spitballing. I haven't really looked into it, that's not my prediction on where they'll go. You can certainly jump online and look up bowl projections. You're going to see all sorts of projections, but we're only a day away from knowing. We're well less than a day from knowing. We should know about 4 or 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon where they're headed.
Yeah, well, tomorrow will be interesting because, Texas A&M. Who do you think will make it in Texas A&M? Texas A&M and Notre Dame.
I think Notre Dame's probably going to hang on to the 4th spot, but I wouldn't be surprised if Texas A&M got elevated. I think that Texas A&M looks like a better team right now based on what Notre Dame couldn't do against Clemson, because I'm not just taking the 34-10 score into account, but that I think that Clemson could have beaten them even worse than they did. That game was 31-3, not far into the 3rd quarter. But at the same time, if you measure both teams' resumes, Notre Dame's got a more impressive resume, not by a lot, but they've got a more impressive resume than Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thought Ohio State. I thought they had that one. I thought Northwestern had it.
Yeah,
but I did. After Justin Fields didn't play the best game.
No, but he was under a lot of pressure. Missing his best wide receiver, but he didn't play well. You're right. He did not play well. That was his worst game as an Ohio State quarterback.
Yeah. Well, the Pac-12 certainly is not the best either. You know, winning the Pac-12 is right now kind of like winning the Texas Bowl. Not the best conference, but
no. We don't think
I
they
think
are. We haven't seen them play any teams outside of the conference to really know that, but you're probably right. That's the general thought.
Yeah, this year has been a crazy year for sure.
Absolutely.
Next year, Florida is going to play Alabama in Gainesville. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but I think that's all I got for you tonight.
I appreciate the call. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
All right, the numbers down at the bottom of the screen. I think somebody sent in a super chat. I apologize if I haven't gotten to that yet. Let me try to find that. I try to acknowledge all those and post those to the screen. So I apologize for whomever got me a super chat contribution tonight. I want everyone to keep in mind that we are building a channel. I have resigned from my previous job after 19 years. Did that about 2 months ago. So we are building a channel here, and it's going to be able to continue based on your individual contributions. And also, we hope to get sponsors. We need to do that. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Michael. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Michael. I'm doing well. How are you?
Not bad. I got to give credit for Florida for playing a hell of a game. I got a question for you. Earlier today, I was telling you that I think Devontae Smith might be the Heisman. But after the performance that Najee Smith had tonight, you think he won the Heisman tonight?
Well, I would like to have all the numbers in front of me because I don't. But I tend to think that if anybody who's voting on this really seriously looks at the criteria of the award, which the award basically says that it goes to the best player in college football, that I believe that Devontae Smith is the best player in college football. First of all, well, I'll state the disclaimer before that it's more difficult to determine in football than any other sport who the best player is because everybody does such different things on a football field. If you're a baseball player, yeah, you may play shortstop and not left field or center field or catcher, but you all come to the plate and you bat. So there is a definite measurement between all the batters in baseball. In basketball, sure, there are centers and guards and forwards, but everybody dribbles and passes and rebounds and shoots and scores. And so there's a way to measure everyone across the board. In football, to compare a quarterback to a linebacker, to a safety, to a wide receiver, to an offensive lineman, it's impossible. And it's obviously not the best player in college football because sometimes the best player in college football might be an offensive tackle, and they're not going to win the award. It's a quarterback award because of how important that position has become that may go to a running back or a wide receiver, although we have not seen a true wide receiver win the Heisman, I don't believe, since Desmond Howard in 1991.
Yeah.
So since then, it's been quarterbacks and running backs, and mostly running backs in the 90s, and morphed more into just quarterbacks recently. But I just, again, I would like to have the numbers in front of me, but I would tend to think that Devontae Smith, in my book, unless something really bowled me over, and I know Najee Harris has scored a ton of touchdowns. He's probably scored, about 27 or 28 touchdowns? Something like that. And he's exceptional. But I tend to like Devontae Smith.
Are you referring to number from tonight's game or overall for the season?
Well, I would like to see the numbers for the overall season.
Okay.
And tonight's game.
I don't have them with it. I don't have them with for the season, but tonight altogether he got like 237 all-purpose yards and 5 touchdowns, 3 of which was the receiving from touchdown passes.
Yeah, I saw his stats for tonight for total yardage and touchdowns. Yep.
Yeah. All right. One other thing before I let you go. Here's how I think the top 4 is going to shake out. And I'll hang up the list after and let you dissect it.
Okay.
Alabama, Clemson, Texas A&M, and Ohio State. And I'll hang up the list until you reply. Thanks, Mark. Have a great night.
Thanks, Michael.
Yep.
So Michael is saying that Alabama's going to finish number 1, Clemson 2, Texas A&M 3, and Ohio State 4. Well, if that happens, and the committee certainly has within its rights the ability to do that, but it would be completely illogical based on what they've told us. I'm not saying that Texas A&M, in some respects, doesn't have a few resume points in certain areas over Ohio State because they played 3 more games. And they lost to the number 1 team in the country, but they got obliterated in the game. It was 14-all in the second quarter. Then they got trounced after that. But the committee has basically told us already, even with the lack of games played, that Ohio State is number 4. So it's basically impossible for Texas A&M to leap over Ohio State based on a win over Tennessee, while Ohio State beat one of the 15 best teams in the country. So how could Texas A&M leapfrog Ohio State? That doesn't make any sense. So if the committee does that, then they have completely come off the rails and proven to be illogical. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
Hello, it's me, Roberto LeBron.
Hey, Roberto.
That was one heck of a Big 12 championship game down in Atlanta.
The SEC championship?
Yeah, that's the joke. The joke.
Oh, the Big 12 championship. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm a little slow tonight. Okay, gotcha. 52-46. Yep.
Like, Kyle Trask had one hell of a game. I'm sorry. You know, I'm saying that he's really sorry. He had one heck of a game, including Kyle Pitt playing healthy and dominating deep balls in every mismatch. Unfortunately, I think his Heisman chances got a little hurt because of his bad game management in the end. With, I don't know, 2 timeouts called and then the sack at the end. That was a really bad way to go down.
You're talking about Kyle Trask, the last sack.
Kyle Trask. Like,
you're talking about the sack that he took the last play of the game when they were at their own 5-yard line?
Play of the game.
You think his Heisman Trophy chances are hurt by that?
Well, not just mostly from like the game managing.
What did he do wrong?
What did he do wrong? Well, he didn't throw the ball away. That's one thing. Second of all, he ran up the field too soon, and didn't look for dump offs first of all.
Are you talking about the last drive of the game when they got the ball with 15 seconds left in the game?
I'm talking about also calling like 2 timeouts. The 2 timeouts. Well, 2 timeouts in the drive. You know, the drive before.
Yeah, so I would say that at this level of football, certainly these guys are very accomplished, but if we go to the next level in the NFL, I hold the quarterback more responsible at that level than I do this being more of a coaching situation. But he called the timeouts. I think that Florida could have done a better job of making sure that Alabama had less time at the end of the first half when Florida scored with about 1:20 left in the half. That could have been managed better. I don't think that that's hurting his Heisman. I don't think that Heisman voters. You have a good point, Roberto. I'm not disclaiming or discounting your point, but I don't think Heisman voters are dissecting Kyle Trask's or anybody's performance to a T like that. That if he misused timeouts at the end of that game, that they're going to be taking away Heisman votes.
Okay.
That's not happening.
All right. I don't know what happened.
Maybe it should, but it's not happening.
Like, they called timeout for another chance for a 2-point conversion. And they called timeout to, like, I don't know, get a play or something when it was near delay of game. Like, why can't they just take the delay and take the extra point and save the timeouts for a stop?
Yeah, I agree that the metrics tell us that you go for the 2-point conversion there. But yeah, if it means burning a timeout, then it doesn't make sense because that timeout is huge. That cost them 30, whatever the play clock is, 35 seconds. during that next Alabama drive, which was huge. They would have gotten the ball back with, instead of 15 or 16 seconds, they would have had 50.
Wait, sorry. And I didn't get a chance to call for earlier just for the first call in and after the Ohio State game and all that, because I was on a road trip around Puerto Rico, and it's the most amazing run game so far this year. But I don't know what happened. I mean, they would say about the play calling with Brian Day, but to me, I saw I don't know what's going on with Justin Fields. He looked off. There were some throws that were going a little low. It was a lack. He was lacking throw power in the arm. I think when there was a backwards pass fumble, it was very low and it was on the way down.
Well, it was reported after the game that he has a sprained thumb.
All right. Well, this is early in the. I don't know, somewhere between the second quarter or something. It's a big mystery, but yeah, you should stick to what works. I don't know what's going on with play calling sometimes. It's kind of hard to find a bread and butter when COVID is going on, but when the run game is working very, very well, especially when they're blowing up plays for untouchable or 20 yards down the field when they run. And then they go passing for incompletions when they're off rhythm. I don't know what's going on. But I'm glad Kerry Coons played amazing after allowing 10 points. They were getting pressure. They weren't getting there, but they were getting pressure. They were getting unnecessary stops on their run, allowing minimal yards from the ground, and tackling well the short passes. The only error I saw was the burnt 7 things, I think, getting burned again, of course. Other than that, that was solid, stout defense.
Yeah, I agree. They had a good defensive game. Sure, they gave up some plays, but opening drive touchdown, and that was pretty much it. They played really well in the red zone, of course, and put pressure on the quarterback.
That was also scaring the beginning of the second half, though. Until Justin Hilliard got a pick on the tight end, which was amazing. He's been a highly recruited guy that's been there for a long, long time. Happy that he got his chance.
All right, Roberto, anything else?
So that's it for me. Also, I'm glad that my ex-university, Cincinnati, won AAC championship.
They did.
No, sorry, the Bearcats. That was the university that I used to go to until I transferred to University of Akron.
Very good, Roberto.
Yeah, that's all for me.
Thanks for the call, man.
You too.
All righty. Have a good one. All right. So Roberto was at Cincinnati, and he transferred to Akron. I think we got that. All right. All right. All right. Anything else coming up here in the live chat? So here's the deal. We all get together tomorrow at noon Eastern time for the unveiling of the college football playoff rankings. I'm sure there will be a huge controversy over number 25 that we can all debate. Should they be number 25 or should somebody else be at number 25? Last week it was what? San Jose State at 25, and they beat Boise. So we'll see and have a big discussion over whether San Jose State should move into the top 15 or not. No, we will all be here at noon Eastern time to watch the selection show together. That should be a good time. And then the bowl invitations come out, and then I got to go to work. Go to work on all these previews and predictions and all that other business that's related to this time of year with all the bowl games and the college football playoffs. All right. Right now, I got to go to work and figure out my top 25 that actually makes sense, and especially that top 4. So be looking out for that. I will get that out either late tonight or really early in the morning so that that's out in plenty of time before the College Football Playoff Selection Committee makes its rankings known. Okay, anything else in the chat? I don't see anything too groundbreaking. It was great to see everyone. Enjoyed the college football this weekend. Championship weekend is like no other. And tomorrow ends all the controversy, or maybe it just begins all the controversy. And of course, we will be here to talk it up. And yes, Sea Dog West, thank you so much. I appreciate those kind of comments. They keep me going. You guys have no idea. Those keep me going. Smash the like button on the way out. And of course, you can always contribute to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Go on Patreon, look me up, Mark Rogers TV, and it's 15 cents a day, $5 a month, and also Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal. See you guys tomorrow. I do, Charles. PayPal. Thank you so much for the comment there. Greg, appreciate that as well. Leonard, those nerds need to hit the like button. Arik Noor, I have never seen you before, ever, and you write in all caps, which is fine, but I will say this. And Lenny the Gump Summers, I've never seen you before. You people need to come back in here all the time. We talk college football every day, all year. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Would love to know who you root for, how long you've been watching, and we hope to keep you right here in the community. Michael, thank you so much for your comment as well. Appreciate that. Cheryl, good night. Thank you for being the best moderator in college football online. Cheryl has no help, so please join Cheryl. She has 8 mystery moderators out there somewhere, but she's the only one that shows up on a regular basis. So she is here moderating the chat. So thank you, Cheryl.